afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest session of our SBC Italy Digital Day. This session is titled Regulation, Getting Ahead of the Curve. Brief description, as you can see on your event summary. I'm joined by a distinguished panel of guests here. We have Ludovico Calvi, President from GLMS, Carina Mancini, Partner at Tanucci & Partners, Ekaterina Hartmann, Director of Legal and Regulatory Affairs for the European Gaming and Betting Association, Tal Itzhak Ron, CEO of Tal Ron, Durham & Co. law firm in Tel Aviv, and Marco Castaldo, Director of Betting and Gaming at Astro. Now, my name is Scott Longley, and I'm the CEO at Clear Concise Media. Right, I'd like to let everybody on the panel just introduce themselves briefly for a minute, and then we'll get into some questions. So Marco, if you would like to start off.
Sorry about that. Some of you will know me as CEO of Microgame, which is Italy's leading B2B provider, but I'm here today with my industry association hat on, representing Astro, which is an association founded originally in 2007 by a group of Italy's leading AWP operators, which has grown over the years to include licensed VLT, online, as well as sports betting operators. So last year, Astro expanded its mission to include betting shops and online gaming. So we joined this association, and I assumed responsibility for the online and betting division.
Thank you. Ludovico, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Scott. Thank you all. Well, I'm the president of Global Lottery Monitoring System. GLMS is basically a global sports integrity association. The objective is to safeguard sports integrity globally. We have integrity hubs in Hong Kong, in Europe, and North America. And on top of course, detecting any suspicious betting activities, we also work very, very closely with regulators. GLMS supports regulated, responsible, but sustainable betting market environments. And we feel very strongly about bans, which often favor the proliferation of the black market and therefore criminal organization and match fixing.
Thank you. And then Katerina, apologies for messing up your name earlier. If you'd briefly introduce yourself, please.
That's fine, no problem. So my name is Ekaterina Hartmann, and I've been with the European Gaming and Betting Association for almost 8 years now. EGBA is this pan-European association of some of the leading online gambling providers in Europe. So Kindred, Entain, William Hill, Betson are members. And I think, and hopefully what I'll be able to bring to today's panel is going to be really our pan-European view of what is specifically the issues in Italy, how they can be addressed, but also with a comparative view of other jurisdictions. And myself, as I said, I've been working at EGBA for 8 years, but I've been working in the Brussels environment for 15. And it's at EGBA, we do a lot of regulation, a lot of regulatory work, but also a lot of regulatory work on an EU level. So that's it in short.
Thank you very much. And then, Carina, if you could introduce yourself. Not everybody should know you anyway, but briefly introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon. I am a partner in a general practice law firm based in Rome called Tanucci & Partners, although I am now based in London. And I have been fishing into the gaming business environment for the last 24 years, I'm afraid to say, and mostly assisting and acting for companies that are based abroad and that are entering the Italian market. So basically my assistance to these companies was to advise them in the deregulation phase, and to work the regulations eventually were rolled out in 2008, 2006, and afterwards, my job was to secure a license for these companies and then assist them in the day-to-day operations, advise them in connection with commercial deals with local partners, helping them finding the most suitable local partners, taking over smaller operations, and so on and so forth. And that's what I'm continuing to do, although now I'm more focusing on, strategy advice based on the fact that the market is fully regulated and licenses are not available, so operators coming from abroad who still want to enter the market need to be guided in terms of the most suitable business model, the most workable marketing strategy, etc. So that's basically what I do.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And last and very much not least, Ron, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so I'm Tal, and thank you so much, Scott. And again, it's a pleasure for me. And once again, it's great to see both Quirino and Caterina and Ludo and Marco, my friends. And greetings from sunny Tel Aviv. For me, it's like sun. It's amazing what's going on here. And I come from Tel Aviv. Probably many of you know that we're not part of the EU. We're not part of Italy. But many of the gaming operators and the largest and the most influential gaming providers are actually based in my city. Some of them are actually providing the platforms that are based behind many of the operators. And some of them are actually doing their operation themselves from here, from the city. And I represent many of those operators, and I really enjoy doing so. And in this panel, I will discuss let's say, the international or the global view of the situation.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tom. Right, let's kick off with the with a question which is, I suppose, really obvious at this point, because we're talking about a new government in Italy, and it'd be interesting to see what the view is of people in the country as to whether or not we have a stable government, and probably more importantly, from the point of view of this session, what impact will the new government have on gambling regulation? Maybe Marco, you obviously are lobbying with the government often. Maybe you can give us your view on where we stand with the new Draghi government, and what do you think its impact will be?
Yes, of course. Well, the easy answer is it's too early to tell. The government's been in effect in power for, I think, 3 days today. What we can say is what we know typically from various moments in history, and there have been many when Italian governments have changed, is that there is a moment of how can I say, things tend to stall. So where were we before the naming of this government? I think there was expectation that the government would launch a legislative review, a broad legislative review, a kind of a sweeping rethink of the overall regulation. And the regulator had, in fact, started to issue position papers on the topic. And I think the question now is there going to be a change? Is there going to be a delay in this process? And it's too early to tell. My expectation is something will happen in 2021 on this level, just because it's badly needed. But of course, that may be more of a hope than a true prediction.
Okay, and anybody else want to chip in with some views with regard to where the sector stands in the Italian space right now? Maybe Quirino, maybe you could give us a bit of a backdrop.
Yeah, well, the situation is the one that Marco has summarized. There is lots of uncertainty. I think that the key dominant word at the moment in Italy is uncertainty, and that does not apply only, I'm afraid to say, to the gaming business, but generally to any business. You may have seen what happened only 2 days ago when it had been announced that the ski slopes would reopen come Monday the 15th, and so ski operators got ready for it. They hired personnel, they reopened and refreshed their facilities. They actually trimmed the ski slopes to be ready. Never like this season, we had so much fresh snow on the Alps and also on the Apennines. And then just hours before the kickoff time, which was Monday the 15th, with tourists having already checked in at many hotels, the government announced, surprisingly, that they were backtracking because as a result of recommendation made by the emergency health unit that is working on the pandemic, and as a consequence of certain analysis, deep analysis of the impact of the famous English variant and South African variant on the latest contagions that were recorded in Italy, they were forced to call off the reopening of the ski slopes. And that was done hours before this was meant to happen. Of course, this triggered a major protest by the affected operators, but also a lot of puzzlement by all the rest of the population, because this may happen. This happened to the ski slopes, but this may happen to bars and restaurants. This may happen to the gaming industry. This may happen to any business. The problem that we are faced with at the moment is that although we know that there are much needed reforms that must be introduced in the gaming sector, because that's what we are talking about today, but more generally speaking, in any other business sector. Also because this is a condition precedent for the next generation Europe money to be made available to the Italian government. Now, these reforms are obviously being discussed. Lots of proposals and plans are being worked out. But then, when it comes to implement them, or when it comes to officialize them, there is a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty, I'm afraid to say, is the same that we also have with respect to the gaming business. Because these guys do not know if and when they will be allowed to reopen their land-based outlets. Many of them, in the past months, did lots of efforts and investments to fit their facilities to be, shall we say, more COVID, if not COVID-proof, COVID-resistant. And this entails investing money, spending money, making architectural adjustments, etc. And then the next day, someone stands up and tells them, sorry, we were wrong. We cannot let you reopen. So I guess the bottom line is this uncertainty is really a key factor this time. And, we would rather have to hope that the new government will speak less and act more. And if that entails saying there will be no gaming offer, no terrestrial gaming offer for the next several months until end of 2021 or whatever, so be it. But at least, please let us know that this is going to be the case.
Okay. Now, the online space is probably in a slightly different situation with regard to Italy right now. At least it can operate, but of course it operates under limited ability, with a limited ability to go to market in terms of advertising and promotion. Could somebody discuss what that has left the situation with regard to operators in Italy, and what their confidence level is that they can reach the market at the moment, bearing in mind they can't advertise Maybe Ludovico, if you would address that one.
Yeah, well, the digital, well, first of all, I echo what Marco and Quirino mentioned. And at the end of the day, Scott, we all need desperately to speed up the vaccination process. The sooner people will be vaccinated, the better it's going to be for everyone. And I hope this is I'm confident this will be the priority of this government, the highest priority, because at the end of the day, I agree with what Quirino mentioned with regards to having certainties. And if we need to be closed for 4 weeks more and have a just full lockdown, but just allowing people to get inoculated, get the vaccine into their arms, well, that's a strategy and will be implemented, and that's it. When it comes to your question, digital gaming has been growing, as everywhere else. In some cases, in some companies, P&L has been able to offset the losses we've seen on the retail side. In other cases, we have not been able to see that. Casino gaming in general and sports betting have really gained on the digital side. But what we have seen, unfortunately, is a growth of the black market. And this is not coming from operators as all over Europe. Everyone is complaining that the restrictions are impacting the retail network, but also giving offshore and, in particular, illegal bookmakers, non-licensed bookmakers to gain market share. This in Italy has been declared by the Director General of the Italian Gaming Authority, who at the beginning of the year declared that legal gaming in Italy declined by 25-30% in 2020, against an increase in revenues, of course, coming from the illegal gaming activities. And this is due to the closure, of course, of gaming locations due to the lockdown measures, but also, to the fact that there's been a growing opportunity for digital in the digital space. We know that the WHO has said that we should be using cash, because cash is a vehicle to spread the virus. And, we have seen people increasing digital transactions worldwide anyway. So what the regulator in Italy is saying, guys, we need to act, because we cannot leave in the hands of criminal organization this phenomenon, which has been growing, and we have seen this growing in the last 12 months. In fact, apparently the Committee for the Prevention of and Repression of Illegal Gaming has monitored illegal gaming activities all over the peninsula and has imposed fines, has closed sites, has closed illegal betting outlets, and so on. So we have also seen, the intention, as Marco said, by the Italian Gaming Authority to review the current gaming legislation, which would touch both the retail and digital gaming licenses, with the objective of modernizing the regulatory framework, of course, fighting the increasing illegal market, but also just trying to restore confidence following the effect of the pandemic. But what we've seen is also elsewhere, apart from Italy, is just how a black market is growing, and this is due to many factors. Operators are worried. This is coming, from the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, the recent one, which has been published, with the objective of qualifying the impact of the black market, and how has been increasing everywhere in Europe. So I think that all in all, what will happen is that we need to really work on the health crisis first, and gaming will not be on the top of the agenda of this government in the next months. But I feel strongly about the fact that once vaccination is underway, government subsidies will be needed. The government will act, because, the government today has some ministers which will be and are pro-business, and they will be making sure, as Draghi will, of course, that business is not, left alone, and that, we have the right safeguarding measures in place to safeguarding business in general and gaming as part of it.
Thank you very
Ludo.
much.
Yeah, if I may, I just heard what Ludo said, and if I may, I would be really happy to comment on that point, Ludo. We spoke about black market, and we all heard about black market, but from us coming from abroad, I think there is a major difference between criminals as we see it, paying in cash, doing maybe illegal land-based gaming, collecting cash, and doing illegal bets on one side. And that's maybe, a black market, as you guys in Europe may see it. Then what we see as, totally legit operations, maybe with licenses which are not like local licenses, but are paying taxes, having legit workforce, do not launder money, do proper KYC, work with proper compliance, and putting everything in the same basket, I think is not the best thing to take a view on that. And you can see that at the end of the day, if an operator has a license from Curaçao, from Alderney, even from an MGA, and then at the end of the day he's targeting several jurisdictions, has legal opinions, and work with proper KYC, proper onboarding of clients, I think that it's also I do not think that the same risk comes from these type of operators, which, from my eyes, are legitimate, than black market to collect money in cash or collect them in bitcoins. That's my view, and maybe it's a personal biased view, but this is, I believe, many of the people operating from outside of Europe, at least those who are not cowboys, those are working legitimately. Some of them are actually getting even incentives from the Israeli government for generating those and developing these platforms, and that's an interesting way to see it. It's like it's part of our economy here in Israel.
No, it's fair, and it's a good point. And I was just making the point of the regulator. The social cost, the policing, is paid by the Italian government.
Of course.
That's why they expect operators to pay tax in Italy, and the same would apply to many European regulators. But
Sure.
I tend to agree. At the end of the day, it's what is the Italian government going to be doing with regards to licensed gaming operators, and what are the next steps, and how they see themselves when they declare, as they did, being, I would say, the only regulator in Europe to officially declare that black market has increased. While this is being mentioned by operators, licensed operators, and not regulators.
Exactly.
And that's the point I was trying to make, Tal.
I agree totally. I was just referring to the point of what is the, yeah, I agree with that. Ludo, I agree with that totally.
If I can add a little contribution to this very interesting debate, I would say that there are two issues when we talk about black market, because of course, in the eyes of the Italian regulator, anyone who is, carried out an Italy-facing operation without holding an Italian banking license is tantamount to a black illegal operator. And even if they held a license in an offshore jurisdiction, or even in Malta, it doesn't really matter. And that brings me to the next point. Because it's not just a matter of holding or not holding an Italian gaming license. It's also a matter of how you do the business. Because there is an impact, a tax impact, which is very important. And the trend that I am seeing is that the Italian tax authorities are becoming ever more aggressive when it comes to approving a setup from a foreign-based operator holding a license in Italy, but having no physical presence in this country. And this is something that is definitely going to become a tax issue, let alone the licensing issue. Because the trend, and this is not just an Italian trend, I would say this is a Europe-wide trend, is to try and tax revenues. I'm not talking about daily taxes here. I'm talking about company taxes, taxing the revenue generated outside of the country where the operator is based. And so if it's Italy, revenue generated in Italy, because that gives, gives rise to a permanent establishment issue on which the Italian tax authorities are becoming very aggressive. So this is a warning to foreign-based operators that this is not anymore just a license issue. It is also a big tax issue, at least potentially.
Yeah, interesting, Karina. Thanks very much. Ekaterina, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. The debate around black markets. The debate around black markets isn't, of course, as has been hinted, isn't only a question that's been raised in the Italian market, but also further afield. From the position of EGBA, what kind of efforts do you think have you made with regard to representing the industry's worries around black markets? And more to the point, what kind of reaction have you had when it comes from governments to the possibility that they are only encouraging black markets with their actions, and B, actually losing out on tax revenues?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I wanted to, I see everyone in this panel feels very strongly about a number of issues. And I was also, at a couple of times, really wanted to intervene as well. I think it's really fantastic panel. Everyone has a lot to contribute. Now, I just want to first go back to what Ludovico was saying. In Italy, the black market is rising. So what does this mean? It means essentially that Italy is failing at finding the right balance between proper regulation that protects the customer and a sufficiently attractive offer, because channeling is ultimately the figure that says whether a regulation is successful or not. And as EGBA, we've seen this across all jurisdictions. Just the way to assess really whether a regulation is doing well or not is channeling. So it's actually very sad that the channeling rate in Italy is falling. And from what I hear, I'm not entirely sure that even if there are changes, whether these changes are going to actually solve the problems that currently exist. So to not have a black market, basically you need to have a very attractive, locally licensed market. And how is this going to be achieved? Well, this is certainly not going to be achieved by an advertising ban. This is going to be achieved rather by making sure that the balance, let's say, that the taxation is properly balanced, that the advertising is properly balanced, that the consumer protection measures are properly balanced. And unfortunately, at the moment, we don't see this in Italy, which is really a shame because Italy is one of the oldest regulated markets in Europe. And time and time again, it has done very well. But I think the advertising ban is definitely one of the things that had a very, very negative effect on the channeling. And now I'm not saying that advertising is not supposed to be a responsible advertising. And for this, we feel that a lot of operators also need to take in themselves kind of the blame and look at their own advertising policies, which is why EGBA also developed a code of conduct for advertising, because we have seen also in other member states and the proliferation of advertising restrictions. But on the other hand, completely banning advertising is actually just helping the black market to flourish. And then secondly, I think a large part also of why there has been an increase in the black market in Italy has to do with the taxation level. Now, taxation level, the basic tax is fine, but this new turnover COVID-related tax, which is 0.5% turnover, it's something that is really killing the business. Because ultimately, in order to be able to offer attractive odds and to compete with operators coming from that are not licensed, coming from other jurisdictions, they're able to offer more attractive odds just because they don't have to have one, let's say, compliance costs, and two, don't have to pay this taxation, which has become quite high in Italy. So from our point of view, I think these would be the two kind of main issues that have really contributed to this steep increase in the black market in Italy. And the Italian regulator and legislator need to think very carefully about how they're going to regain the balance in the legislation in terms of protecting the customers well, but at the same time being able to offer attractive odds, because not being able to offer attractive odds really equals consumers going to the black market.
Yes, I mean, Tal, if you want to address this question here, because if you're, there's a lot of global interest in the Italian market, obviously, and you've mentioned a number of companies, whether they be suppliers or indeed operators that are effectively Israeli-based companies that operate in the Italian market. But is the attractiveness of the market lessened because of the problems when it comes to A, advertising? How on earth do you enter the market if you can't advertise? And B, the fact that the tax rates are quite punitive at the moment.
Look, I think that maybe the Italian market, if you see it on the whole, it will always be very, very attractive. But, it's like maybe when you have an operator, normally it does not focus only on the Italian market. Normally can take the Italian, the German together, maybe the French and other, French-speaking countries as well. Now, you don't have one Curaçao-based or Alderney-based operator only focused on the Italian market. You take it as a mixture. What I can see, and that's very, very important to understand, that even those companies that in the past have been thinking that they can buy in $4,000 a Costa Rica license for transmitting data over the internet, they understand that that cannot be done, and that's very, very important. This is thing that I'm very proud of, because even those who are actually using, an offshore-based license, they understand that it's not enough. You need to have proper KYC. You not to have even the Curaçao license is not enough on its own. When you want to target Italian clients, it's not on its own. You need also an Alderney license now. You need now proper KYC. You need several PSPs, and it's unbelievable how the things became very, very, very complex. So the things it's not as it have been several years ago, and that's very interesting how everybody from outside sees all the development. Of course, I'm not really aware of all those political developments as Quirino and Marco and Ludo and Ekaterina mentioned, because we are not really, people say sometimes someone snoozes in the EU and things happen here in Tel Aviv or in Ramat Gan. I believe that also in the gaming industry that also happens, but at the end of the day, we have our own ecosystem as, suppliers, and we all try to find the best legit ways to operate,
Marco, going back to you and maybe putting your hat on as a microgame chief executive, would you say that the market now is as attractive as it has been from the point of view of your company, and are you hoping maybe that it will be a better environment in the years to come or in the months to come if you can potentially persuade the government to be more friendly, particularly towards the online environment? Maybe you could answer that.
Yeah, and I'd like to also address some of the issues that were raised, which is a very interesting debate. So the market, I think, is looking more and more interesting going forward. Clearly, the pandemic has accelerated a transition in consumer behavior and consumer trends. Not I think from land-based to online, but from the two different models to a multi-channel model. So I think the market is evolving fast, much faster towards a multi-channel model. And it's, the response of players despite shop closures shows that the demand is there, that I think will contribute to growth in the market over the years to come. So from the business perspective, the market outlook is very attractive. From the regulatory perspective, I'd like to take a step back and see that, if we think about the black market growing, I think we have to consider, that there's a pandemic effect, of course, that has caused the black market to grow, and I think there has also been an effect related to the political backlash against gaming that has become more serious over the last few years, that maybe culminated in the advertising ban. But before that, Italian regulation, I think, is a good example of how a national model, and I stress national, to comment, what the Tal was saying, a national regulatory model that has been, finally, fine-tuned over the years to make the offer look more and more attractive with respect to the international and the black market offer. And the results are there to be seen, because the increase in the market, the increase in the online market, the increase in the gaming machine market, when the gaming machine market was regulated to substitute the illegal video poker market, all of these are signs of great success. I think the Italian legislator and the Italian regulator have worked really successfully over the years to take a huge iceberg, and make it emerged out of the sea, going from nothing to almost 10 billion of tax revenues. And, most of that isn't growth in playing. Most of that is black market becoming white. So the national regulatory model has proven to be a success. Now, unfortunately, recently, for many reasons, there's been a huge political backlash, and there's been a dominant prohibitionist idea, that has taken control, and it's led to things like the advertising ban. It could lead to worse things. It's led to a chaos regionally in Italy, where regions or even cities now believe themselves free to regulate whether betting shops or gaming halls can be opened or not. And that is what now needs reform. Now, we have to work against the tide of negative sentiment towards the gaming industry, which is to a large extent a result of, mistakes by the industry itself. And, so from my point of view, not only as a manager, but as representing an industry association in Italy, we have to defend, a national regulation model which does what Ekaterina was saying, which is, make the model safe for consumers, but also, defends the industry, because a lot of this is about, or most of this is about, growing our industries, growing employment, growing know-how, growing technology. I mean, that's one of the key things that we have to be about. And of course, it doesn't happen if we don't have a safe playing environment. It doesn't happen if we don't prevent or treat pathology related to gaming. But that's ultimately the objective. Now, given that that's what we're trying to promote, and we're trying to get the government or politicians to see us as an industry that has the dignity and a right to exist, I think it's totally counterproductive to work against the national regulatory model. And so, I don't think it's good policy for the industry to go to politicians and say, look, if you're in Curaçao or you're in Alderney, well, they've got KYC there as well. When you're talking to a politician who believes that gaming should be banned because we're all out there to make people sick and take their money. We have to defend a strong regulatory system that is focused on defending consumers. And nobody will ever convince me that a regulatory jurisdiction, which is essentially a license factory, protects consumers, when their consumers don't even bet. So there's a fundamental issue here about the philosophy of the underlying regulatory system, where I think the national prerogative, unless we respect that national prerogative now, we have to expect politicians to keep bashing away at the gaming industry.
Okay, we have very little time left, but Carino You've indicated that you might want to comment on the back of what Marco has just said there. If maybe you could say that and then wrap up, and then we'll end this session. You've got a couple of minutes.
Sure. I just want, I fully agree with Marco. My only concern is that, as I said at the beginning of this very interesting and lively chat, I have been fishing in this water for more than 20 years now. And throughout all these years, I've never seen any consistent, coordinated, scoped lobbying by the industry on the government, whoever was on the ruling plate, no matter who was on the ruling plate. That's the core of the problem. This industry in Italy, the gaming industry, is unable to speak with one word, with one voice, to think with one head. Because historically speaking, all the big guys out there have always had their own lobbyists in the parliament, and they barely spoke one another, as actually some of those hated one another. And they were completely missing the point that the only way to, get things done in this country, given the level, the very low level, I'm afraid to say, of sophistication or education of our politicians, is to actually tutor them, teach them, speak to them, convincing stories, easily digestible stories, and get them focused on the targets that are to be reached in the interest of the nation. Because let's never forget that the gaming sector, as Marco just mentioned, is fetching to the state coffers in excess of 10 billion euro in gaming revenues. So they must be able to be listened to if they want. Problem is, they have been unable so far to get together and lobby as a single unit. That's my final remark.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's us out of time. I'd like to thank you very much, Carino. Thank you very much, Tal. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Ekaterina. And Ludovico, last but not least. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.